So some people might find this controversial, but they really shouldn't. We should be letting asylum seekers work whilst their claims are being processed. We've got 1.1 million vacancies in the United Kingdom as of today. We've got many jobs that Brits simply won't do. Many of these migrants are working illegally anyway, or they're being driven to crime. Why don't we just make the most of a bad situation? Let them plug our employment gaps so that we're not suffering from job losses in some area, and also allow the migrants to earn their own keep so they're not reliant on the taxpayer. We pay £2.1 billion a year, housing them in hotels and giving them takeaways. Why not let them work so they can pay their own way, so it reduces the burden on the taxpayer and also plugs our employment gaps? And besides, as I mentioned, many of them are working illegally anyway. So, Emily, you're a low-tax, small-state Conservative who believes people should be self-reliant. Why is it that we're not allowing these asylum seekers to be self-reliant when they're here?
Well, because I don't believe that they would be self-reliant, firstly. I think your strongest argument is that a lot of them are already working illegally. I think that's true. Mark White, our Home Affairs editor here at the GB News, did a piece on that, a report on that earlier, and many people who are staying in hotels are also working in things like car washes and other small businesses where they're able to get away with it without having a visa to work. But I think there's a strong argument to say that this would be a massive pull factor. Yeah. If anyone can simply hop onto a dinghy, come over to this country and be allowed to work, then that makes an absolute joke of our visa system.
But at the moment,
why would you even bother?
At the moment, they're hopping onto a dinghy and they're having all of their bills paid for, they're having food paid for, they're getting takeaways, they're staying in hotels. So is that not already a pull factor? And all this would do is mean that they're paying their own way, so it's less of a burden on the taxpayer.
But why would you even bother applying for a visa if it was the case that if you arrived illegally, you'd be put up in accommodation and then also be allowed to work, and presumably also have access to the NHS, to benefit system, because a lot of these jobs wouldn't be enough to be able to afford.
But they already
housing,
have all of that.
Board,
they already have all of that anyway. Benjamin, would it be cruel to allow these asylum seekers to work in the UK for the 2 years that it takes for their claims to be processed, integrate into society, and then if they're denied, send them to Rwanda or back to their country of origin?
Well, I think it's absolutely essential that they work in this country. We have an economy for which sectors like healthcare, like care homes, like parts of hospitality, where it is on its knees because there are not people to do the jobs. Look at fruit picking as another example, where the ability to make a profit in that industry has gone through the floor because the immigrants aren't coming over here.
So you just want asylum seekers to work on the fruit fields?
Well, yeah, I do,
thought some of them were doctors, engineers, master engineers,
but they can't work as any of those things. And what I think is that they should have the right to work so that they can contribute to our society, so that they're not a drain on public funds, so that they're invested. And you know what? Some of these countries like the Yemen or Afghanistan, 80-90% of them will be accepted. And yet what we're saying right now is we're going to pay you 50 quid a week, which is an incredibly small amount of money in the first place, but we're going to pay you 50 quid a week for 2 years and spend thousands of pounds on legal fees, and you can't do anything useful for us. How is that the best answer?
How the left have changed. Now, the left used to be about protecting working-class jobs. Now they want untapped, low-wage jobs market where unlimited labour can flood across the channel.
I don't think that's
take the
what
jobs
Benjamin
and press wages down for working men.
You clearly don't believe in borders, Albie and Benjamin. Because if you think there's someone who gets on a boat, arrives in this country and immediately has access to the labour market.
But Emily,
what an absolute joke.
They're working illegally anyway, as you mentioned. They're working illegally
hopefully not all of them are.
Many of them are.
And this is something that the government needs to clamp down on. I'm sorry, it makes an absolute joke of our asylum system. It would make an absolute joke of our visa system. I understand your economic argument, but I think it is weak, because these people would mostly be working in very menial jobs, and it wouldn't be enough to support their accommodation. It wouldn't be enough to make up for the amount that's spent on the NHS, children's schooling,
well,
etc.
£2.1 billion a year on hotels and takeaways for migrants. Why is it a bad thing to let them work so they can pay their own?
Do you know what, Albie? I find it extraordinary that you're speaking up for those who are working illegally in car washes and all those other kinds of jobs, when actually you're not speaking about the 5 million people in Britain who are out of work.
That is a separate issue.
How is it a separate issue?
You would
bring in more labour that competes against the working people of Britain.
These people are already here, Darren. These people are already here. I'm saying let's make the most of a bad situation. There are jobs that Brits won't do. They're a drain on the state.
What you are proposing,
let's let them work and pay their own way.
What you are proposing would bring in a hell of a lot more people. I am answering your question.
Why is that bad?
If you would stop being so rude, I will answer your question.
Please.
If you incentivise people to come here in overwhelming numbers, how on earth is that not going to compete with the domestic labour market here at home?
These people.
Why do you not care about the British people?
These people are already here.
Why do you not care about the British people?
I think you're making a pretty ridiculous statement that I don't care about.
No, that's a really valid point.
Answer the question. Answer the question.
I'm answering the question. This discussion is about migrants who are currently a net drain on the state. There are jobs, as I mentioned before, that British people simply won't do. Suella Braverman spoke about it at the National Conservatism Conference, of which you were at.
But Albie, don't you think the emphasis
So why don't we
should be
let them plug the jobs that Brits won't do?
No, but don't you think the emphasis should be on our failing asylum system and the fact that asylum claims are taking so long to be processed before you just give it a carte blanche to anyone who crosses over the channel legally?
That's not the argument that we're having today.
It's absolute rubbish. It's nonsense.
Not the argument we're having
it's ideological.
And especially when a million people are rumoured to
none of you have
here.
answered my question.
But
why it's bad to let them pay their own way.
People are coming here. It's obscene.
Can I just pick up this claim that somehow they're flooding in because they want the small benefits that are offered to them here? The push factors are much stronger than the pull factors to this country.
From Albania.
It's the fact that we have climate change destroying parts of the world where millions live.
Climate change is destroying Albania.
It's the fact that we have serious problems with terrorism in parts of the world that
There's terrorism in Albania.
And that's why they're coming here.
It looks like we're not going to agree on this one. Sadly, we're going to have to move on.